Leaders are humans too. And then they carry this unique weight with them. That's so heavy.
I think that's one of the problems we're trying to solve here, is that you don't have to carry it alone.
Welcome to the Leading Second podcast, a space to help church leaders thrive in the second chair. Today's conversation will help you embrace your calling, get it right with your pastor, and lead in an uncommon way. Let's jump in.
Well, Leading Second, welcome back to the Leading Second podcast. My name is Brandon Stewart, and we are so excited, honored, and anticipating today a great conversation, having you a part of it. So we're so glad you're in this space. Leading Second exists to help leaders thrive in the second chair. So if you're here and you hold up your pastor's arms in any way, you serve the vision of your church, you want to see your church move forward, Leading Second is for you. So welcome back to the space. We're so glad you're here. And man, today we've got a big one. We've got a really important, necessary conversation for you today. Today we're going to talk on when leaders need help. I'm so excited, and actually I would even say feel burdened today, and I'm anticipating having a very necessary conversation. So I'm glad you're here. And if this podcast resonates with you, hit subscribe wherever you are joining us today. And I want to encourage you to take the next step beyond today and consider joining us on Leading Second Plus in our community there that we have created for you. It's online courses and resources also to help you thrive in the second chair. And guess what? Leading Second Plus is now available free of charge, a free subscription for you. Our gift to you to help you navigate life in the second chair. So check us out there. A lot more to come on both on this conversation and in your leadership journey. But without further ado, I'm so excited to get into our conversation today, when leaders need help. And I have two of the, in my opinion, the best in the world joining us today, Roger and Sarah Stanton. From the Seattle area, from Champion Center, joining us today to have an important conversation. Welcome, guys. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining us on the Leading Second podcast.
We're glad to be here.
We sure
Thanks
are.
for having us.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are special friends to us, to our family. We have girls similar age. We've done a lot of life. And maybe just give us your bio, Roger. I guess you can start, besides being my primary heckler in life and in ministry. You're my favorite person to sit on the front row next to you, by the way. I get a little commentary during some of the service. Just give us your bio. I've loved doing life with you guys over the years.
Yeah, we were watching an old video the other day, and Brandon was doing the filming of Layla's first birthday and providing his own commentary on it.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, we've been I've been at Champion Center since '93, and my family came with my parents and have grown into a pastor here. Sarah and I got married in 2002. And we've been married ever since, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Barely made it, but we made it, right?
We did.
I started out as an architect, went to school, got a Master of Architecture, and just thought that's what I was going to do. And until I got into recovery for pornography addiction. And, I was leading at the church and I was helping out, but I was broken. And so we got into Celebrate Recovery in 2009, and God broke my heart. He broke my heart. I was introduced to a Savior. I knew Jesus as the one that was helpful, but I didn't know him as a Savior. And I started to realize, like, how do we provide this for leaders in church? Like, why aren't more people trying to get well like we had to get well? And our marriage was broken. Even though we were tithing, we were showing up, we were leading, we were doing all the things, but we were broken. We were about to fail.
Yeah.
And I had a big old pause and got well, and God reintroduced empathy. And when he did, I'm like, all right, I don't think I want to do this industry anymore. And I was at the peak of my construction industry. Installed an $85 million park in Tacoma waterfront, and it was awesome. And this is the best it's ever been. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I went back to school, got my master's degree, and joined my wife, Sarah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
So I've been at Champion Center for over 40 years. Pastor Kevin Gerald's been my pastor since I was a little tot. We are the Celebrate Recovery Mental Health directors, which is a pretty amazing role. And
Right.
I've been a licensed mental health counselor. I'm going into my 20th year. And I remember as a little girl seeing this woman walk the halls of my elementary school. And there was this just beautiful spirit around her. I didn't know who she was or what role she played, but I knew I wanted to be like Mrs. Thomas. So Mrs. Thomas, who worked at Natchez Trail Elementary, is watching this podcast. It was you who encouraged me to be a counselor. And then I later learned that in my family, mental health challenges were running rampant on both sides, from depression to suicidality, schizophrenia, and that only confirmed a calling on my life to get into counseling. So it's been awesome to have my husband join me in the counseling field and on the Celebrate Recovery team, just walking with people who are hurting, helping them find hope and healing through Jesus. So it's been pretty great.
Yeah.
I just have to commend you guys on all you've done for the kingdom so far. And I truly believe your greatest days of effectiveness are still to come. But thank you for so many years of leading Celebrate Recovery, both locally and nationally, in the capacity that you do. And this would be for another conversation, Roger, but thank you for taking a step of faith to do this. I mean, I'd love to have that conversation sometime, because it's a big step of faith to leave security, to follow God's calling. And I just happen to believe that's the very place where God meets us. So my hat is off to you guys. And we are so excited because we're calling our partnership here Leading Second Care. Leading Second Care. We just kind of wanted to formalize it today, put a little bit of a ring on it, so to speak, because in Leading Second, from our neck of the woods here, we do a lot of coaching. We talk to a lot of leaders. We do ministry events to leaders all year long, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of leaders a year. And yet what I've noticed is that leaders have very real needs. And we wanted to create a bridge to help address and provide deeper care when it's needed. So we're going to be talking about that throughout this conversation. But I'm just so excited to let people know we now have a greater capacity to have the care conversations for when leaders need help. And here's where I'm going to start with the conversation with you guys, Roger and Sarah. To me, we have a problem in ministry. And the problem is this: in no other career in the world, by my estimation, is someone's character and morality and their employment so intertwined. Character always matters. And I will say the biblical requirements to lead are good. They are from God, and they are for our good. The problem is God uses imperfect people for his perfect purpose, but that means he's using imperfect people. And I think the challenge that I've noticed for myself is, I almost have 25 years in ministry now. Where do we go as leaders when we need help? Where do we go when we're struggling? Because to me, the fact that it's tied into employment, while necessary often and good, it creates a problem. And I think it can almost send leaders into hiding. I guess my question, just to dunk us in there, is, have you noticed that to be true in your experience working with leaders in ministry?
Yes, we have 100%. Every leader is a human. Most of them have a family, and the kids get sick, and marriages get sick as well. And so, what do you do? How do you? Because you got to show up and put on the good front and lead. But how do you do that when everything inside of you is falling apart and you feel your family ripping apart? You feel maybe your family of origin, a parent is sick, or
I'm thinking old wounds that they never had the funds or the resource or a family member or support saying, hey, have you thought about having, working with someone to heal some of those old wounds that are maybe bleeding out onto their team members or those that are serving under them? Yeah,
that's right. So yes, we definitely see it, and we get to sit in spaces as clinicians with people who are really trying to figure out, let's take ministry out of it for just a second. You work at a tire shop, and you have a hard time getting out of bed because you're just anxious or depressed or feeling like life is just too big and too hard. I have no purpose, or my purpose is confusing me. I feel like I'm supposed to do this, but I'm being pulled this way. And those are big, huge questions. And if you don't have somebody to sit with to process those, you can get yourself into some pretty big trouble with just using your own brain to do the math on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned in the beginning, like, leaders are humans too. They've got the emotions, they got the pressures outside of the church, and then they carry this unique weight with them, this spiritual responsibility, taking care of others. That's so heavy.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the
Totally.
outlets to process and have someone help support them and help them work through, we have problems. And then their paycheck could be potentially attached to that as well. They're hiding. A lot of them are hiding and carrying that weight by themselves.
Hey, quick shout out to our friends at Goff Companies. If you're a church leader who's ever thought, we need more space, but you have no idea where to start, Goff Companies is the team you should know about. They specialize in building churches, and their team includes pastors, designers, and builders who understand how ministry works. They help churches think strategically about what to build, how to pay for it, and how to get from vision to reality without all the stress. So if you're dreaming about what's next for your church, check them out at goffcompanies.com.
I think you said it right there. A lot of them are carrying the weight by themselves. I think that's one of the problems we're trying to solve here, is that you don't have to carry it alone. Maybe here's an interesting question. Where does coaching end and care begin? And I'm just curious to hear what you say on this, because as someone who has spent now a lot of years in coaching, man, I have been in some conversations that, you're working through an organizational tension, and all of a sudden you're talking about a personal issue, or maybe a personal offense or anxiety, or someone's not doing well. And I have found myself dangerously close to the care side, and even in conversations I wasn't equipped for. So where would someone who is open to receiving coaching, maybe they're in coaching, whatnot, where does coaching end and actually the need for care begin? Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a really good question, and it probably depends on the human. If I'm having a hard time on team, or I'm in a team that has a structure that is uncomfortable for me, why is it uncomfortable for me is a question that care would address. Coaching would be, all right, let's work on how that we can make this strategy and the structure better, right? And so I think that if I look at counseling is, we're sitting, we're drilling into past, we're drilling into, what are the beliefs that you have about leadership, and on, and
Yep.
how do those beliefs drive your emotions and your feelings and your thoughts, and so that's really what you're trying to get into is, an example would be, you have this young leader, let's call it a youth pastor, who is just driving for the top of the pyramid. Why are they driving for the top of the pyramid? Like coaching would be, all right, we're going to build the team, we're going to grow the team, we're going to do the things, but we would want to understand, is there a deficit in this human that's causing them to feel like the top of the pyramid's the only option for them? Why is
So
that?
good.
Well, like they had a dad who never told them they did a good job, and so there's something driving them toward, well, we don't want them to settle, but at the same time, we don't want this soul itch to persist. We want to address that and understand why does that even exist, right?
Yeah. I also think the line between coaching and care, I think there's some responsibility on the coach. Is this above my pay grade? Am I even being effective anymore? And it's okay to then say, I know one of the things that we have to adhere to is do no harm. So someone is sitting in front of us and we're not effective anymore. It's our duty to refer them to a higher level of care, or someone with a different
right.
specialty. And so I think about when someone is acting in a coach role and they're no longer effective, and that person is still stuck, then they need to move on to someone who can be a little more effective with that individual, with that leader.
Man, thank God for you guys. You are above my pay grade is what I am officially calling it here. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I love how we're framing in the need for care. There's probably issues of character flaws and sin things of that genre, but there's also beliefs and hurt. I love that you just called out maybe a misplaced drive for ambition or a need for approval. I mean, all of those things to me classify as a greater need for care. We're going to take a minute and we're going to talk from a couple different sides of the coin here about care and people's belief about needing care. And the first side of the coin I want to talk about someone who might be hesitant to reach out for care. Maybe they feel like, man, if I raise my hand, there's a stigma, around it, or what is someone going to think, if I go that route. So in your experience, what are some of the most common reasons that church leaders hesitate to ask for care and ask for a greater level of help when they need it?
I think that oftentimes, well, I would answer that with a question back to that church leader. What would you say to somebody who's hesitant to join team? How would you approach that human? Hey, I know joining team is going to let me feel plugged in. It's going to help me grow toward God's plan for my life, but I'm just hesitant to do so. We would coach that person. We say, hey, joining team is the way forward, and it's going to help you. And what is it that you're afraid of? And really, I think it's a fear-based mindset. It's I'm limiting myself. I don't want to be exposed for not knowing how to be on team. Say you want to join the lighting team. I don't even know how to run a lighting board. There's a lot of buttons here. I don't know what to do. I don't want to be exposed for not being well.
Yeah.
And so I think there's that. There's the like, if somebody finds out I'm seeking care, what does that mean about me?
What are they going to think?
Am I a broken human who, like,
Are they going to ask me to step down?
Do I lose my job?
Yeah.
Pastor Brandon was talking about the character attached to a paycheck.
Yeah.
And so I'm afraid of losing my income. I'm afraid that they're going to know that I was abused as a child and that I've walked through all this hardship.
Yeah.
And like, how exposed does this thing get? And I think there's this dam that we build up that we feel like we can never breach that dam, because if we do, we can't control the water that's going to flow out of our soul. It's like, I know I might be able to get well, but it's better to not breach the dam.
I think as a culture, we're doing better with the stigma of reaching out, even within the church.
Sure,
But I
true.
do think there still is stigma. I think, am I going to look weak? Am I going to lose my job? Are they going to look at me as unqualified to lead now, as opposed to, I think when leaders say, I need some help, I actually think it's inspiring.
Oh.
I think it's encouraging. That
Same.
level of humility and vulnerability, I think actually makes a leader. I love it when pastors from the stage say, yes, I'm getting support. I think it allows everyone in the audience to, they're normal.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're real. They're human just like us.
But what keeps them from doing that, I think, is this, what would people think? And part of what we're doing is building influence. And I don't want to wipe out my influence because I admitted something was wrong. I've worked my whole career to build this influence.
Yeah.
And you land in, we've seen some pretty spectacular failures in the last 10 years of leaders who refused to take the off-ramp to go get help, and instead just powered forward like, oh no, the thing's going to work. I got to keep going. I got to keep this influence intact, instead of stopping and getting well and then continuing. And it just ends poorly.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of collateral damage too.
There is.
Yeah.
I think there's narratives. I think there's some cultural and family narratives. Like we keep it inside. We don't talk about this. I also think the enemy, it can be so loud.
Yeah.
Like, you can handle
there's
this on
that.
your own.
Yeah.
You don't have to let anyone know. No one knows at this point, which is such a lie. And I also think that there can be this expectation that how do I say it? This pressure expectation that I cannot show that I'm weak or having troubles.
Anything at all.
Yes.
Like, because right before we go on stage, we all right, make sure that the buttons are good and there's no wrinkles,
Right,
and
let's
that,
look at my
because
teeth.
everybody will just pay attention to the flaw.
Right.
And it's like, well, I don't want to expose a flaw willingly.
Totally.
And so I
Totally.
would just,
When in actuality, it's so normalizing.
yeah.
Yeah. I just wonder if we don't see these things the way that God sees them. Everything you've said is reasonable. We've heard it. We've probably said it to ourselves at times. And I just have a suspicion that's not how God sees any of this. I was just, as you were talking, I was led to Matthew 5, the Beatitudes, and Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn." How many people have sat in your offices that are mourning? For they will be comforted. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just think about some of this. Blessed are the meek, or you could say the humble. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Why does Jesus say we're blessed in those moments that by an earthly standard feel like loss, that feel like less than? Why does Jesus call them blessed? I think part of the answer to that is he just has a completely different economy than we do. And I think that the blessing is the fact that those are the places where the Lord is actually the nearest. And those are the places where he can do some of his greatest work. But we tend to think, oh, this is not good, so I've got to cover it. And I just think we miss the whole economy of heaven and what God actually wants to do in the life of someone who is just willing to do things his way. Am I making sense there? Someone who's willing to actually admit, I'm poor in spirit right now, but realizing that's the very place that I believe God could show up, for me right now and in my life. Do you guys agree with that?
I think from a CR perspective, I'm thinking about by the blood of the Lamb, the word of our testimony. The testimonies are so rich.
Yeah.
They're so, oh man, healing
Totally.
happens when someone gets up there in this vulnerable state and say, here's who I was. They haven't arrived when they get up and give their testimony, but here's who I was. And this is where the Lord met me in the middle of my mourning, in the middle of my infidelity, in the middle of a diagnosis that I just received.
Right.
Yeah.
I also think the risk in that, Pastor Brandon, is that that I can almost feel some of your listeners going, well, hold on a second. So we're just supposed to stay broken the rest of our lives and just stay in counseling forever. And now, the Stantons just want to, no, we're not saying that you stay there.
Right.
Nobody should ever stay there.
No.
But we have to at least go there to get well. I look at it as we have all these closets in our lives and God has plans for these spaces. And we just shove all our skeletons in there and and then we lock the door and we never open them up again. And it's like, well, God has a plan for all this stuff. All that hurt has a purpose if we hand it to him. But as long as we just keep it hidden, we never get the James 5:16 principle where it says, when I open up about this with someone else and pray over it, I could actually have healing. Those broken pieces, that trauma that I've walked through, that hardship as a child and being ignored and having to fight for attention and all that stuff can be redeemed. It can be restored.
Totally.
But we have to have somebody who could sit in that with us, sit in the dirt with us while we talk about it, while we unpack it and go, okay, this was hard.
Well, and the word doesn't say blessed are the peacekeepers. It says blessed are the peacemakers.
That's right.
And I think peacekeeping is such a interesting, no one feels peace when they are keeping the peace. But right? That's such a weird statement. But we're called to be peacemakers. And that means running to the mess and working through it. Not staying stuck, not being holding this banner of this is the diagnosis that I have and it's been passed down. No, we believe.
See, I'm anxious. That's why I am.
In changing, becoming generational healers. Not these, yes, there are generational curses, but we also believe in generational healing.
That's right.
And so we want to run to the mess. We want to be peacemakers.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that. We're off the script now. This is the God territory at this point. Okay, let's just for 1 minute talk about peacemaking, peacekeeping. I love this concept. I'm interested in this concept right now because I think a lot of leaders find themselves peacekeeping. And let me just share a story. I mean, we get the opportunity, the privilege at Leading Second to minister to leaders in some of their most vulnerable places. A couple of years ago, Leading Second camp in Salt Lake City, I felt led of the Lord very specifically, pray for people who are dealing with offense up to and including being offended with their pastor. Now that's a bold statement, and that's a tough place for a leader who would find themselves there. To me, when there's tension on the team or tension with your leader or tension in your marriage, peacekeeping, I got to make sure I'm get my words straight here. Peacekeeping is, I'm not going to acknowledge it. I'm just going to power through it. If they want to know more, they'd ask, or, whatever. So it's a denial of the reality to me. And what you're experiencing there is actually not peace. What you're experiencing there is a little term called false harmony. And false harmony exists when everything, like the surface isn't rippled, but man, there's an undercurrent under there. And everyone can feel it, and everyone can know. And to redeem my story about leading second camp, I prayed for leaders that day. And I saw healing. I mean, I had leaders come up to me afterwards and just talked about how freeing that was, how healing it was to actually be able to receive ministry, for that place. That, to me, when we allow the Lord in, that's the peacemaking place. That is where we can see true reconciliation in some of these important relationships.
I'll add to that in a clinical space, peacekeeping full grown is codependency. It's when I care more about this person's health than I even understand my own health.
I know more about what you're feeling than I know about what I'm feeling.
So it looks like the spouse of an addict or the mom of an addict probably is more likely, right? Where she's just going to buy all the food. She's going to figure out how to keep them safe. And she loses her life trying to keep peace for her addict child.
Trying to save them.
Trying to save them.
God to come in.
And do the work.
Saving.
And so oftentimes there'll be an intervention where you bring the floor up and you say, okay, we can't support you anymore. And that's peacemaking.
Yes.
It's trying to get this person to wellness instead of allowing and trying to fight for the crazy of keeping all this stuff going just so that you can keep the peace. And
the facade.
It's
the
fake.
Sunday smile, right? We're putting our Sunday smile on, even though there's beef with this leader, everything is, but you can sniff it out. That's not,
everyone knows.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, and the other people feel it too.
Right.
Because there's something that leaks off of us when we have that toxic codependency on us where it's like, yeah, man, I don't know if I want to be on team with this person.
Yeah.
It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah, bleeds out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. One last question for you guys before we go to the other side of the coin. What does it cost a leader or their family or their team or their church when they wait too long to reach out for care, when they're too hesitant and they're sitting in that cage? What are they losing? Because I think we need to really add this up. What price are we actually paying here? So what does it cost a leader to not reach out for help?
As we were just mentioning, I think they may think that they have this facade, that they're hiding it really well, but not only is it affecting them, it's affecting their family, it's affecting their team. Burnout can happen. I know we were having a conversation about burnout earlier.
Yeah. I think burnout's an easy example. You fall out of love with your plan, with God's plan for your life, with His purpose. If God called you to ministry, the easiest way to burn out from your calling is to not get well, is to not receive care, is to not address the things that need to be addressed. Why do I have this limp in my soul? Why do I consistently try to crack a joke at everyone's expense? Why do I consistently try to get people to tell me I'm doing good or position myself so pastor notices? Or why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Well, when those itches never get scratched, the human soul finally goes, hey, this isn't working. Let's get out of here. It's probably the church, or it must be the pastor, because it's definitely not me, right? But there's some extenuating circumstance that's gross, and I think the cost is your calling. If you wait too long, your soul can only take so much stress before you start to excuse why that stress is coming.
Yeah.
So it's not me. Obviously, it's not me. They're out to get me. This church, they've always been out. is Pastor Kevin. I knew it. He's been out to get me for 30 years.
Well, and that's a denial mechanism. That's a protective mechanism. But I can look at everyone else. It's much easier to address everyone else's issues than it is your own.
Well, and I'll add one story. When I was in my 30s, I began running. Maybe that's just a 30s thing to do. And I never stretched. I never...
That wasn't a 30s thing for me.
Okay, well, it was 30s thing for me. I never stretched. I never actually did it right. I probably didn't have the right shoes. I never drank water before. I'd probably slam a cup of coffee and off I go, right? And I remember on my 35th birthday, I'm like, all right, it's a half marathon day. So I took off. I just started running. And I made it, and I'm going down a hill, and I'm almost home, and all of a sudden I feel this pain in my knee, and I'm like, what is that? And then from then on, every time I would go to run at mile 2.5, I'd feel a pain in my knee. And so I didn't go to a doctor. I didn't drink more water. I didn't seek help at all. I just quit running. Like, hey, obviously it's running that is causing me the problem. I don't have a body to be a runner. I'm 6'2", so it's not obviously I can't do this. And so I just quit running. That's what's at stake. You're going to quit ministry because ministry is going to be too painful for you. You're going to be exposed to this thing, and you get to mile 2.5 and, oh, here we go. It's Easter again, or, oh, it's Christmas season. Oh, pastor just wants me to be here 24/7. And all of a sudden that same pain comes up and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me.
So you may still be able to function for a bit. You can get to the 2-mile mark, but the longevity is out of question. The sustainability is out of the question.
Because you never got well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a brilliant example, by the way, and great way to say that. And I would also just add, I think sometimes the things that get a lot of airtime are when a leader has messed up and people find out and they end up having to transition off the church team, or, they experience real consequences for what has gone on, all of those things. And that gets a lot of airtime. And I just wonder if there's leaders out there that think, well, no one has found out yet, so I'm in the clear. And I think we would just want to challenge that, because to me, you can still... God in his mercy, I think, allows us a lot of chances to address things privately. I don't think God is in the business of just automatically uncovering. I think God is often very merciful, but sometimes there just comes a point where we're incongruent with his plan, and then things move into that phase. I just know, I would bet there's a lot of leaders out there that are just sicker than they need to be right now. And you can breathe oxygen again. You can know what it feels like to lead out of wholeness. You don't have to have that sting in your heart, when issues get talked about on the team, and that sting that comes up and goes, man, if they only knew. You don't have to live there. It does not have to be chronic. And I just felt like saying that because I wonder if there's leaders out there where you're just sicker than you need to be today. And God has better for you and more for you. And I think we have to trust him. If he's a good father, we have to trust him that he's able, if we're willing to bring these things under his authority, he's able to lead us through them well. And he wants to restore you, not destroy you or tear you down, unlovingly in the process. I'd like to hit one more element here before our time is done. And I'd like to talk about the other side of the coin. And this angle we're going to finish on today might surprise some people out there. But I want to talk about the current cultural moment we're in for a second around mental health and therapy and getting help that we need. Our culture's having a loud conversation about it, and some of that is very, very good. There's also, though, I think you'd agree with me, there's also a tendency, culturally speaking, for people to wear diagnosis as a badge. Our culture in its rush to reward those oppressed, and that kind of a thought. I think people wear these things like a badge of honor versus, I think we see it differently than that. And I would just love to hear you guys kind of work through this current cultural moment. You're licensed counselors. You do biblically centered, church centered work here. Are you seeing that, number one? And what does a healthy approach to care actually look like in the ministry world?
That's good. I at one point in my tenure as a clinician, I had 5 autistic 14-year-old boys. These boys have neurodivergence and they struggled in life, but I learned from them that even with the neurodivergence, they had ambition, they had drive, they had goals, they wanted the most out of life. They had struggles that would come at them out of nowhere, and so their life might always be marked by this neurodivergence, but they could still thrive. And so even though they obviously have something that is a diagnosis that causes them to present differently in public spaces than others may, they could still live a really healthy, fun life. And so I think the opposite of that is the person who doesn't want to go to work. And they're like, hey, I would like to live in heaven right now and not have to work. Can I be retired right now?
Or will you please write me a letter that
We've had this.
Yeah, so that I can be out of work for 6 months.
And it's like, well, hold on a second. Let's talk. Like, just because you don't want to work doesn't mean that there's something that causes you to objectively be oppressed. Like, that's just a willpower issue, right? That's something where somebody's like, hey, I don't want to stack chairs after service and reset the auditorium. Well, so if I had a badge that got me out of this, then I wouldn't have to. That's what we're fighting against. It's like, that's not a real mental health situation. There's something behind that needs to be addressed.
They're finding significance. They're finding identity through these mental health diagnoses, through these labels. I think it is loud. We can't turn on Instagram or Facebook or whatever without a reel, without a meme, without someone beating the drum of their diagnosis. It's interesting coming from the Celebrate Recovery world. If you have done anything secular recovery, you hear people's introductions. Hey, my name is John and I'm an addict. It is their identity. In the CR world, we do it a little differently. When we give our intros, because that's what you do in 12-step recovery, we first say, I'm a grateful believer in Jesus, or I'm a Christian. Our identity is in Jesus Christ. And then we do say, and here's what I'm overcoming. We don't even say I'm struggling with. Champion Center CR uses the language of, and we are overcoming, which means we love the Lord, we're believers. Hey, here's what we're overcoming. And we say that so that we can find our support people, or support people can find us. It's not because we want this label. It's not because we're glorifying an area of struggle. It's like, who's my support people to help me get through this current challenge that I'm walking through?
So if somebody was coming in for care, it would be valuable to highlight, all right, where are the struggles?
Yes.
Like, we have to name them. We have to be able to say, like, okay, this is an attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it's obviously pulling your attention away, and there's distractions, and so we might refer to a psychiatric nurse or psychiatrist. Maybe there's a med involved. Maybe there isn't a med involved, and there's just some strategies that we can employ. So it matters to be able to call out the thing. But the second I wear that as my badge instead of faithful believer in Jesus Christ, Lord and Savior, who saved my life forever and, pulled me out of the depths of hell.
Right.
Like, as soon as I transfer that and say, well, I'm a broken human, it becomes a badge that I use to excuse sometimes hard work. It excuses me from, well, I can't read the Bible because I can't focus on the words. I have dyslexia. I actually have met with patients with dyslexia who say they can't read the word. And we've found strategies to help them get the Bible inside of them because they have to have it. So it's not a, here's my badge, I'm out of any of the hard stuff in life. I think that's what we're fighting against, because some people will put it up and go, well, I can't do that.
Well, it gives them a reason to stay stuck.
Yeah.
It gives them an excuse to not have to put in the work.
That is not acceptable. Even in a clinical setting where we see clients who aren't faithful believers in Christ, we would never allow that, because they will always be stuck. If that's what you say, well, then there you go.
Or we would challenge it.
Yeah.
How come you're here then?
Yeah. Well, it just, if they're saying over their life, I will forever be anxious. Well, okay. You're going to forever be anxious. There's nothing I could do, right? We could challenge it.
We would.
But if they continue to say, well, it is what it is. It just is a really limiting posture. And I think that's what you're asking, Brandon, is how do you manage that? Well, we would challenge it.
Yeah, that's really good. I've heard it said in preaching environments, I've heard it said an unnamed enemy will never be defeated. So I think there's an acknowledgement in those of us in ministry, we have to name the enemy if we're going to defeat the enemy. But I think, care and these kind of conversations still just have a stigma. And I would ask you about one more little myth maybe we can bust through here. I would wonder if there's a pastor out there or a leader out there that's thinking, okay, if I have a member of my team go and see, someone and receive care, is it going to become so centered on the person that it's going to talk them straight out of their marriage or talk them straight out of their calling, talk them straight out of church? And I don't think the myth is totally unwarranted. I think we've seen that before at times. But I don't think it has to be that way. Here's what I'm saying. I've had a counselor for years. I mean, maybe coming up on 10 years. In the toughest stuff we've talked about, she has always affirmed my ministry calling, always affirmed the church, et cetera. It's not that someone can't take a break or, get out of the arena for a little bit. I think there's just a concern out there in ministry. Are we just going to talk people straight into deconstructing their calling? I guess just talk about that for a minute. How I feel like we're going to approach this differently and do this in a way that, to the degree we can, preserves people's calling and marriages and their relationship with their church. I mean, what do y'all think about that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Roger?
Thank you, Sarah, counselor. I would never imagine that starting by talking somebody out of a job, out of a calling, out of a marriage, out of a situation is beneficial. It's not beneficial. First, you have to address what's going on with the individual. Why is there a rejection of a feeling of rejection toward their calling? Why are they feeling like that's the wrong thing for them? That's where the care work happens. Why is it that there are times we've been married long enough where we have seasons where we get irritating to each other, and maybe seasons, not days, like seasons, right? And so it's like, well, it's not. Maybe Sarah changed. But that doesn't mean that I got to throw out this marriage. That means I have an opportunity to adjust to a wife who is going through changes. But my wife without kids was much less stressed than my wife with 3 daughters. That's a real life thing. Well, that doesn't mean that my marriage is over now because I got a stressed wife. This means I have to adjust to the new setup, right? And so, God forbid, there are clinicians out there who would take the quick answer of, oh, your church is stressing you out, so you need to leave the ministry and go find a job where they honor a 9 to 5, or they da-da-da-da-da, right? Like that. Like I just feel like that is a lazy response to try to give somebody an answer, a pill that's going to just quickly help them. That's not going to help them in the long run. That's not wellness. That's just escapist. So you can't escape the struggle. The answer's in the struggle. Romans 5:3 says it's in the struggle that we earn perseverance, and in perseverance we earn character, and in character we earn hope.
Yeah.
Well, to delete the struggle is not the answer. It's how do we move through that thing to get to where this is helpful. Now, I will say ministry at times can exist without boundaries. And boundaries are heavily important for anybody who is working in ministry. My best yes, that's a thing, right? So we have to be able to say, I can do that. I just can't get it done right now. And that's where that care comes in, is teaching them, okay, what language would have been helpful to run to the mess to your pastor and say, hey, pastor, I hear you asking me that, but I'm already working on the thing that was really important to you. So which one of these is most important today?
Yeah.
Right? Giving them language to be able to stay sustainable in their calling. They have to have that.
That makes me worried as being in care and counseling, kind of the blood on our hands if we're like, oh, walk away from your calling and your purpose. Like, that feels scary. And I know I can speak for us individually when we're meeting with people in the church or meeting with leaders. Like, you and I have longevity. Like, we've had plenty of opportunities to get offended. I've been a part of Champion Center over 40 years. There's been things that have gone down that I've been like, maybe raise my eyebrows, but that's between me and the Lord. And if I've needed to, talk it out with leadership, help me understand. But I think for you and I individually, we would be the last to say, oh, you better go church shopping. But we're going to challenge, what have you done? Have you gone to your leadership? Have you gone to your people and asked questions and started with curiosity instead of just hitting the ground and running?
Let's pull the curtain back for just a second. My sister is Pastor Nicole. She's the location pastor of our central campus at Champion Center. And there is no family Christmas holiday vacation where there isn't church talk, where there isn't, it's the life that we live. We will always talk about this. And so we're
not always in agreement.
No. And so, but we're always working toward, all right, how do we show honor? Like, all right, we still have to be in an honorable position here. So while we might disagree, we got to land in a place that builds kingdom. We cannot rip apart kingdom and deconstruct kingdom for the sake of feeling safe. That's never an option for us, right? You, my dear, have been in the awesome position of counseling church staff.
Several.
Oftentimes when they are offboarding from staff.
Sometimes.
And they're bringing to you all of the hard things that they experienced on staff.
Right.
How do you manage that?
Well, I've had to protect my heart. I have to realize my hat as a clinician, as neutral in that moment, or if we're talking care, more in a care position, like this is their experiences and this is their real feelings and thoughts and opinions, and separate myself, but they're human, right? I'm human. I have thoughts, feelings, opinions. What am I doing to work through that just as they are?
And we have eliminated my truth. People can have experiences, but truth is truth.
Yeah.
There's one true north.
Yes.
There is a truth. And so as being educated like you are, being educated in sitting with people, we hold on to that truth while somebody's sharing their experience, and we go, well, how does that match up with truth?
Yeah.
I hear your experience.
Yes.
You're saying that your dad doesn't love you, but I'm also hearing that he just bought you a new car and shows up, texts you every day that he loves you. So help me understand why there's a discrepancy from your experience and the actual truth. And that's part of how we would manage this scenario, this arena.
Guys, I could talk to you for a really long time, but we probably need to land the plane here today. I'm going to give you one more question here to give you the final word, but I just want you both to know I treasure you so much, not only as friends, but as co-laborers in the church. You are such a gift, and the space that you've already provided to leaders who have already reached out, I know is such a gift. And I just want to encourage any leader listening, if this has resonated with you, if God is putting his finger on something in your life today, because of this conversation, will you come out of hiding and will you reach out? It would be our privilege, it would be our honor to walk with you. In fact, let me just be plainly clear. If you reach out through our website to Leading Second Care, to Roger and Sarah, they're the only ones that know you reach out. And we're setting it up that way so that you can feel safe to do so. And I just want to call you to that today. If God is working in your life and there's an area that he wants to now work in and touch, I just can't think of a better route to do that. Roger and Sarah, thank you. I'm going to give you the last word here. Just speak right to the leader who, just like I was, who is sitting there and they know that there's an area of their life that's not well, maybe a soul ache. How would you encourage them to take a next step here as a result of this conversation?
Boy, it's real. This is hard, leader. Nobody knows what you're carrying. Nobody knows how that, it's called an allostatic load. Nobody knows how that load is landing on you, how uncomfortable it is. Nobody can appreciate that but you. And God has equipped you. He's called you. But you don't have to do this alone. You really don't have to do it alone. And I could understand how some leaders might be resistant to reach out because, like, what am I going to just talk about my feelings the whole time? Well, feelings are definitely indicators on where we're at, so we should probably reference them. Emotions matter. Yeah, we should. If you're yelling at everybody, we should probably talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But more than that, it's how do we align best? What belief systems aren't serving us well, and how could we swap them out for belief systems that are? And so I think that the longer you wait, the bigger the collateral damage could become if this thing was to go sideways on you. You know, if somebody was to look over your shoulder while you're on your phone, like that, it could all end tomorrow. And so why not reach out? Why not try to get well first before the thing explodes? I mean, the Bible's pretty clear that you can only go so long with getting away with stuff. And I think poor soul health would be one of those things. If you're not working, start.
Your well-being affects everything that you do. I mean, when you are healthy emotionally, spiritually, relationally, everyone knows it. When you're unhealthy emotionally, spiritually, relationally, everyone knows it.
Yeah.
And so you're not alone. You're not absent of problems when you have a title of a leader.
Yeah.
And man, we've sat in rooms where people have found freedom, when leaders have felt peace, and they lead better. They're healthier. The leadership in their home is different. The leadership on their teams is so different. And so to see someone walking with clarity in their purpose and a newfound freedom and a newfound peace, that's why I've been in the field for 20 years. It's beautiful, and we want that for you. We hope that for you, and we'd be so honored to walk with you in those moments of walking toward the peace and freedom that God has for you.
I'll add one thing, that it is a common sentiment that people will say, "I wish I would have done this 10 years ago."
Yeah.
Because all of the relationships that have been soured and all the hardship that they've endured could have changed. It's the same as, I wish I would have started investing when I was 20 so that I could have the compound interest working for me. The same is true with your soul health. Like it doesn't mean that you're spiritually weak to get well in your soul. It just means that your soul needs to get well. And I would say start as soon as you can.
You guys are a gift. Thank you so much for this conversation today. When leaders need help, I pray that something that has been said today has been encouraging to our audience, our tribe who's listening today. If you're wanting more information on Leading Second Care, you can head to our website, leadingsecond.com. We have a tab under coaching for you to find out more information and for you to reach out. It would be our honor and our privilege to walk with you. Roger and Sarah, thank you guys so much for your time today. Thank you for speaking into our tribe, and thank you for all you're doing for the body of Christ. Amen?
Amen. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage everybody, hit subscribe. Join us in the coming weeks for more episodes on the Leading Second podcast. Until then, Leading Second, we love you. Continue to run strong for the kingdom and lead in an uncommon way together. God bless you.
It's our honor to serve churches and leaders across the globe. We equip ministry leaders with the coaching, events, and resources needed to embrace their calling, get it right with their pastor, and lead in an uncommon way. You can visit our website, leadingsecond.com, to learn more about how we can come alongside you as you lead from the middle, from the second chair, for the second chair.